Hello and welcome back to the Writer in White. Today's video will be looking at my to-be-read list, my TBR list of the books that I'm looking forward to be reading in the next short while, the ones that I've started reading, and a couple ideas for series, authors, and books that I am hopefully going to be looking forward to reading in the next short while. Starting off, the Bloodsworn Trilogy is fully captured my attention. The Shadow of the Gods is the first book from John Gwynne. In this series, the second book recently released, The Hunger of the Gods, and I started the series. I am loving it so far. This is my first introduction to John Gwynne. More of that will be coming in my book reviews that come on my website and are posted to Goodreads, and when I do my wrap-up, the books will also be addressed there. But that's kind of what's starting off the list. Loving what I've seen so far. Really excited about the concept of the books and what they have to bring. Next series is one that I started a while ago from an actor and an author that I'm a huge fan of. Luke Arnold is an Australian writer, actor, screenwriter, and he's very, very talented. I highly recommend you check out his work. But his first novel released a couple years ago, the second one, Dead Man in a Ditch, more recently, and One Foot in the Fade, the third book in the Fetch Phillips novel series, just released within a few days of this video going live. A very different style of fantasy, very noir-esque, investigative, and a very different take on a magical fantasy world. The basic concept is that it's a world where magic existed and then magic left. Magic no longer exists. So it's a story about characters and people who have lived with magic, magical creatures, elves, dwarves, vampires, things of that nature, but magic is now gone. And so we're following this main character, Fetch Phillips, who's a man for hire, an investigator, and he has his own kind of ties to the world. And so it's very, very interesting. It's very well written. I love the first book, recommended it to my friends. Dead Man in a Ditch has been on my list for a while. I'm anticipating getting into this very, very soon. Especially with the recent release of One Foot in the Fade. The things I've seen have been really encouraging so far. People have loved it, and I'm excited to get into these two novels. Another set of books that I have been super looking forward to getting into ever since I started really diving into the history of kind of fantasy novels, histories of magic systems, things of that nature, are the Books of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. She is a cornerstone of the genre. Her influence on magic and magic systems is, it can't be dismissed. So I saw this collection of the Earthsea novels. It's big. It's not a small mountain to climb by any means, but it is going to be a joy to dive into. This will be my first true exposure to her literature, and I'm really excited to see what it has to bring. So this is on the list. It'll be a bigger challenge than a lot of the other ones because it is a collection of the books. But again, very, very excited for this one. In keeping kind of with the theme of mythology and books and stories that are inspired by mythology, I have copies of Heroes and Mythos from Stephen Fry. These are his retellings and reimaginings of classic Greek mythology, Greek legends, Greek heroes, and his kind of almost retelling of those myths and legends and tales in a more contemporary style. Easier to understand, easier to consume. I'm anticipating it to be somewhat similar to Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology. Not so much necessarily imagining that it's going to be the same writing style, the same storytelling techniques, but a retelling of these classic tales that we are familiar with, but kind of repackaging them in a way that is easier to consume. Something that's not necessarily academic in style, but is given different language, giving the same heart of the story, but a retelling. So haven't been able to dive into them yet. I think Stephen Fry is a fantastic storyteller. I love the approach, and that I have been told that these books and these stories hold. And I've always loved Greek mythology. I've loved mythology in general, so excited to get into those tales as well. and other novels and stories that I will probably be adding to my list very, very soon after I make my way through these. I want to make progress on what I have so far before I continue to add to it. It's a lofty goal, and it is always a bad habit of trying to hoard books rather than actually reading them. But the Locked Tombs series by Tamsin Muir is another one of those series that is different from the traditional fantasy take that I really want to get into, with the imminent release of Nona the Ninth, which is I believe the third novel in that series, coming out soon. I believe it's coming out in September. That will be another kind of divergence from the very traditional Western-centric medieval style fantasy. That will be a nice change and something that I'm looking forward to getting into as well. I also want to look and dive into more works from John Gwynne. The Bloodsworn Trilogy has fully captured my attention, and it was a delight and a joy to learn that he has 7 other books out right now across 2 different series set in his own original world. Those books, of course, being The Faithful and the Fallen and the Of Blood and Bone series. Books like Malice. Those are ones that I had heard about tangentially through social media and other writers and readers, but I think those books will very quickly make their way up my TBR list. Once I've made my way through the ones that I have. I don't want to dive too deep into one author all at once. I want to get kind of this wide spread of influences and voices, especially from authors who are looking at fantasy through different lenses. So that will conclude my TBR list update so far. Obviously, things might change over the next few months in this next kind of section of the year. These updates will be coming quarterly, similarly to my reading updates for my most recent video, which was my reading update for the first quarter of the year. In a few months, you will be seeing an update on these books, and hopefully I will have made some good progress through all of them. But until then, remember, you are important, you matter, and your story is worth telling, but it is up to you to decide how and when you decide to share it with the world. See you next time.